Tonight on Southern Newsweek, resident doctors walk off the job and hope to retain their working conditions. The Brighton Rally holds the oldest continuous veteran rally in the Southern Hemisphere. And Gallery on Blueskin is launching a competition encouraging people to make traditional tea bowls. Kia ora, I'm Sophie Morris. Dunedin junior doctors said they're in for the long haul as they began their second two-day strike this week. Members of the Resident Doctors Association union walked off the job at 8 a.m. on Tuesday and weren't planning to return to work until Thursday.
Stand up, fight back! When doctors' rights are under attack!
If their picket outside Dunedin Hospital this morning is any evidence, the Resident Doctors Association union has doubled its determination. Twice as many doctors turned up to protest today compared to their first strike a fortnight ago.
We went into mediation with the DHBs last Thursday, and unfortunately they've not shifted on any of their clawbacks at all. They still want to destroy our right to have any decision in how, where and why we work, and they don't seem to want to move in the slightest.
The doctors' main bone of contention with district health boards is a bid by their employers to remove the union's right to agreement on various issues. Those issues include rotation to another employer outside the city boundaries, a combined period of on-call and on-duty exceeding 16 consecutive hours, and the right of the union to agree or disagree to an alternative roster pattern.
I think the clarification that this has never been about pay. This is about our basic working terms and conditions. We are striking for the status quo.
And after last week's mediation failed, notice of a third doctor's strike was lodged.
If the DHBs won't regain on these clawbacks, that they keep on pushing forward, the resolve among the RMOs is very strong. We will be back out on strike. We will not tolerate this change to our terms and conditions.
Southern District Health Board Chief Executive Chris Fleming says hospitals, including emergency departments, will remain open during the two-day strike and will continue to provide essential and urgent services in Dunedin, the south today.
Firefighters had to work in severe heat after a baler and tractor caught fire, setting a paddock of stubble and bales alight in Westerfield, inland from Ashburton. The hay baler and tractor were engulfed in flames as fire crews and tankers from Ashburton and Mayfield arrived. Thick black and grey smoke was visible from around a kilometre away. Fire and emergency crews worked quickly to extinguish the large pieces of farm machinery and say it was under control about an hour and a half later. Conditions are very dry in mid-Canterbury after a wet spring and early summer, producing plenty of fuel for fires. It's understood the gear belongs to a contractor. A Waititi art gallery and a local arts aficionado have joined forces to hold an inaugural event based around ceramic tea bowls. People are being asked to create tea bowls which are either along traditional lines or more modern, and there's prize money in both categories.
The art of ceramics and the art of tea have gone hand in hand for many centuries in various cultures around the world. Now a new competition hopes to spur nationwide interest from either amateur or professional ceramic artists to create their version of the perfect morning tea bowl.
In collaboration with a good friend of mine, Marshall Seifert, who lives locally, he's come to me with the idea of asking the New Zealand potters and ceramicists to produce tea bowls.
Gallery owner Louise Burnside says that those submitting work can either go along traditional lines or present a new take on what the tea bowl could look like.
There's traditional and originality, and there's a prize being offered for both those categories. We're not sure how many people will submit work, but we're hoping lots and lots and lots take up this challenge.
Her gallery is brimming inside and out with art in many media and styles, and she's pleased to be doing this competition with Marshall Seifert, as it's just one of the areas of the arts which he's passionate about.
Hence his collection that he already has, and I'm very passionate about ceramics. I like to fill my gallery here with lots of different artists' work, but ceramics have always been my passion.
Burnside says it's open to potters and ceramicists of all skill levels and abilities, and she's looking forward to seeing what arrives at the gallery.
It'll be so exciting to see what comes in. I would like to see things from, professional potters from all around New Zealand, up and down the country who obviously might hear about this. I hope they do. And then other local people who may not have done much ceramic work in the past or want to try it.
Those wanting to enter the competition need to have their finished bowls to Waitangi's gallery on Blueskin by Thursday, March the 14th. In Waitangi, the South Today.
The wet weather didn't put a dampener on the 65th annual Dunedin to Brighton Veteran Car Rally last Saturday. Around 30 vehicles converged on the Octagon. The rally then took them along Kaikoura Valley Road through Green Island and Waldronville, eventually finishing up at the Brighton Domain. The heavy rain didn't deter the car enthusiasts, with many donning period costumes to enjoy driving their treasures. The Brighton Rally is the oldest continuous veteran rally in the Southern Hemisphere. Veteran cars are classified as those built before 1919. An Invercargill artist finally completed a giant mural on the side of a hotel in the town's CBD. The unveiling was the first time he'd seen the work in its entirety after labouring on it under the confines of covered scaffolding.
Possibly the tallest artwork in the country. Invercargill artist Danny Owen posing for a photo opportunity with Mia Judson, the 2-year-old who modelled for his 33-metre high mural on the side of the Kelvin Hotel. Commissioned by the ILT, it heralds changes for the city.
I think it does portray the new look of Invercargill, where we've got vibrancy, youth, a good ethnic balance, which is just great, and certainly a positivity towards the new city upgrade and the future.
Owen agrees, saying he's pleased to be involved in the start of a new era for Invercargill.
I think there is big changes coming in Invercargill and positive changes, so I feel blessed to be maybe one of those small steps in that.
However, Owen did have to overcome a fear of heights to complete the mural.
I'm scared on a 6-metre lift painting a mural swaying around, but when you're 30 metres up fixed to a wall, I actually felt the safest I ever had, until I looked down.
Dennis is very pleased at how the murals turned out.
We looked at it this morning and we looked, wow. And it's got a little bit of wow factor. It's something that we can discover in our own time, and I'm sure that it'll be the start of other things. So good luck to you, and thank you very much for the work. It's spectacular.
The mural was designed to represent the changing face of the city and its growing diversity. In Invercargill, for the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, we meet a surfing family with members who could take their recreation to higher levels, and firefighters are kept busy in Oamaru. Welcome back. Dunedin's Peiru family could be developing into a surfing dynasty to match Gisborne's Quinn family, or another one closer to their Dunedin home. At just 12 years old, Misha Peiru has just won the South Island Grom. Her 16-year-old brother is no slouch either, and then there are their cousins.
In the shadow of Blackhead, a group of young surfers waits for the perfect wave. Among the group is 12-year-old Misha Peiru, who won the under-14 section at last week's South Island Grom series at St Clair.
I got first in the 14s and fourth in the 16s.
Groms, or grommets, is a surfing term given to young surfers. And it's not just the Peiru kids who've taken to surfing like ducks to water. Their Christchurch-based cousins Leah and Eva Wilson are also placing well at national competitions. In fact, 14-year-old Leah beat Misha to third spot in the under-16 section at St Clair, and did quite well in another leg of the nationwide competitions on the west coast.
I got second in the under-16s and third in the under-18s.
At 16, Ruben Peiru is the elder statesman of the group and has been standing up on a surfboard from a very young age.
About 13 years.
Oh, and you're
16.
Sweet. So you were first on a board when you were 3?
Yep.
Like, when did you first stand on a board?
3, I think.
At the other end of the spectrum is the youngest of the quartet, 11-year-old Eva Wilson, who didn't compete in the under-14 section at St Clair, but has already won a competition in Christchurch.
Well, it was the Canterbury Primary School Champs, and I came first in the year 6 and under.
Surfing certainly runs in the family, with the kids' dads Steve Peyroux and Guy Wilson both surfing as well.
I've got two brothers, and all three of us, we all surfed a lot growing up. It was just part of us, part of our lives, and so had children and got them into it very early.
Even though the youngsters are doing well in competitions, none of them feels a need to aim for the professional circuit yet, but Steve believes some of them might have a genuine chance.
Well, I'll probably just do it as a fun thing to do, not super seriously.
Oh no, you have to be pretty good these days to be a professional surfer. Just don't know if I'm quite up for it yet.
Not really. No.
Just get as good as I can. Maybe get out to pro, but it's unlikely. And just be an all-round good surfer.
Got the talent. There's possibly more opportunity for women in that way. Might be wrong there.
And he believes their wider family might be able to rival other surfing dynasties.
Yeah, there's another surfing dynasty from Christchurch, the Schaefer family, Manu, Peter and Tony. And we think that we would rival them and the Quins. Yes, absolutely.
Whether this quartet ever aspires to touring and competing is completely up to them, the family, and whether sponsors decide to catch their wave. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Fire crews initially struggled to douse a house fire as it was engulfed by flames in North Otago on Tuesday morning. Crews from across the area were deployed shortly before 9 a.m. to reports of a home fully involved in fire inland from Oamaru. Western Volunteer Fire Brigade Chief Fire Officer Bevan Coppett says crews left the scene at around 1 p.m. Fire and Emergency New Zealand say crews were struggling to contain the blaze earlier in the day due to a shortage of water. But the arrival of a water tanker helped them get the fire under control. Dunedin continued to showcase its diversity of culture with the local Filipino community celebrating their Catholic Sinulog festival. Those at last Sunday's Mass at the St. Patrick's Basilica in South Dunedin were treated to a Filipino procession. The celebrations were to honour the Santo Niño, which is a religious relic icon of Jesus as a child. Performers from across Dunedin and Balclutha took part in the celebrations. The Sinulog Festival traditionally includes participants dressed in bright coloured costumes, dancing to the rhythm of drums, trumpet and native gongs. The end is finally in sight for developers behind the $20 million Frankton Marina, almost a decade after planning began. Developer Lakes Marina Projects has commissioned contractors to build floating berths and sheds, a breakwater and a car park at the Sugar Lane site.
Work on the new Frankton Marina nearing completion almost 10 years after the project began. For Lakes Marina Projects' Alan Kirker, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it's a project that we've had on the go. We first submitted 9 years ago, so we're obviously pleased now we're at this stage. You can see that construction's well happening, things are starting to pull together, which is good.
The $20 million development set to feature 187 floating berths, 17 floating sheds, a breakwater and a car park for over 150 vehicles, as well as other structures at the site on Sugar Lane.
It's a lot different than I suppose what you would call a normal marina anywhere. It's a lot challenging, the ground conditions and what we've reclaimed.
But Kirker says there's still a lot of work to be done before the marina's ready to open, which he expects to take place by around October.
I think once it's probably cleaned up in the next few months, we'll see more, we'll start to get excited. But at the moment it's still a lot of work, even for us at this stage, just on a day-to-day monitoring to make sure that we haven't forgotten anything.
The developers say they've received considerable interest in the berths, which is set to be leased out at a minimum of around $8,000 a year. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. Two famous soccer coaches visit Dunedin looking for future football stars. And a full bench of buyers helped records tumble at the Harden Youth Fair. Welcome back. Penguin rescue volunteers at Maureki are calling this year's yellow-eyed penguin breeding season a success, following blood tests showing all the birds are clear of avian malaria. But the battle against the mosquito-borne disease isn't over yet, with workers remaining vigilant as the warm summer progresses.
Volunteers from Oamaru's Penguin Rescue releasing a yellow-eyed penguin back into the wild with a clean bill of health. Despite recent battles with undernourished chicks, this year's hatching season has been a success so far.
We have 53 chicks currently. We've got 11 that we've hand raised and the other 42 are in the field, and there's one we saw today we're a bit concerned about, but other than that they're all doing fine.
The warm summer now brings a threat of mosquitoes infecting the endangered birds with avian malaria. The disease killed 10 breeding females last summer. The neighbouring farm has sponsored the dropping of pesticide into its ponds, and a penguin refuge has been reclad to keep the mozzies out.
So we've mosquito-proofed all of our enclosures that we're going to use, and any temporary ones will have temporary mosquito proofing. And we're all learning as we go, but yes, our goal is to never have a bird held without mosquito protection.
Goldsworthy is taking blood samples for the University of Otago's DNA analysis program. She can also examine the blood under a microscope to see if a penguin needs to be given pills to fight off avian malaria.
So that if a bird is showing signs of malaria and demonstrating it through the slides, which we can test immediately, we can start treatment straight away.
With 53 chicks now almost fully grown, the sanctuary is well on track to top last year's success of 50 chicks surviving to fledgling age. In Oamaru, for the South Today.
About a dozen staff from the Telford Agricultural Institute in Balclutha took part in a working bee at the Balclutha Community Garden. The staff were showing appreciation for recent community support following the suspension of their pay by liquidators almost 3 weeks ago.
A way of saying thanks. Telford staff do the heavy work of shifting gravel at the Balclutha Community Garden. The staff have been struggling since a pay freeze following the voluntary liquidation of Telford's operator, Taratahi, back in December. Yesterday's working bee was a show of appreciation for the community's support and the generous donations on a Give a Little page.
Staff at work, they've got young families, mortgages, and now they've got no money coming in. We had the Give a Little page where that was actually divvied out between the staff, and that was huge. So that's just helped some people to maybe pay a power bill.
She says getting together for the working bee has been a morale booster for the suspended staff.
We're keeping positive, so part of doing this is actually trying to keep that positivity going. But yeah, there's certainly families that are struggling at the moment.
Snell says they're remaining optimistic for a successful resolution to Telford's difficulties.
Our hopes for the next few weeks is that there will be an answer at the end, and we will be back at Telford and delivering the courses that need to be delivered.
And she believes the agricultural school is an important asset for the rural sector.
There's a real demand for it. Our students, we have 99% of our students that have jobs before they leave Telford, so that's a huge loss to the industry if that's not there.
Invercargill's SIT has submitted a bid to take over the operations of the Beleaguered Institute. The Education Ministry says the bid is being worked on this week as quickly as possible. In Balclutha, for the South Today.
Dunedin's Tahuna Park may seem a long way from the World Cup, but the grounds and many others like it around the country are being used by the national coaches as a foundation point to reach football's biggest stage. All Whites coach Fritz Schmid and New Zealand's under-20 men's coach Des Buckingham were in Dunedin recently as they look to immerse themselves in the setup of each local environment.
The next generation of Southern footballers eager to impress two of the biggest names in New Zealand football at the moment. All Whites head coach Fritz Schmid and New Zealand men's under-20 coach Des Buckingham in Dunedin this week as part of a nationwide tour aiming to find out exactly what's going on in the regions.
If you want to establish like an identity of game and you want to know who you're dealing with, you need to see what's happening in the country and how coaches, how players go about their daily business.
Both coaches have had around a year in their respective roles, and they've spent the last few months travelling around the country's 7 football federations in an effort to see players and coaches in their own environments.
The one thing I think helps with what we're doing now is you bring national coaches to the area rather than bringing players into the national setup. So it just gives us a better idea of what's happening on the local level.
And while the coaches are looking to bolster their respective sides' international schedules, the aim is to try and give all football players around the country as much game time as possible.
If you look at the international leagues, you know, the professional players, they play up to 50, 60 games a year, and young players of this age group, they come up to 30, 40 games a year, so that's where you have to aim at.
His aim is to qualify the All Whites for next year's Tokyo Olympics and the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. For these young footballers, it's a brief chance to catch the eye of the national coaches. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Sheep numbers were down, but there was keen interest among bidders at the Harden Ewe Fair recently. Around 12,000 ewes and 20 flock rams went under the hammer. That's a far cry from earlier years when stock numbers topped 20,000 and the sale was spread over 2 days.
The ewes have it, as record prices are reached at the annual Harden Ewe Fair. The sale began strongly with one pen, a lineup of 117 two-tooth Corriedale ewes entered by Bell Hamid Farm from Waipara, selling for $262.
$260, that's $260. You came in late at $260. I'm on a one. 2, 6, 1, 2. Damien, 262. Sure, you're gone. They're gone, team.
North Canterbury stock agent Alistair Albie Orchard says years of drought has brought more buyers to the market.
There's buyers coming from as far afield as Marlborough, mid and South Canterbury, and the wider central Canterbury area. So with half our yarding compared to other years, I think there'll be some quite good competition here for the ewes on offer.
The day's top price of $281 went to a pen of half-breed two-tooth ewes from Benmore Farm near Ward in Marlborough, which is right in line with what Orchard was predicting at the start of the day, although he was a little sheepish about talking out of turn before the sale.
I don't want to speak out too loud just at the moment, but look, a lot of the young sheep will make $200 to mid $200. There could be some of the younger two-tooth ewes make over $250. Going on Temuka sale a couple of days ago, so the best of them down at Temuka made over $300.
The top price of $324. While sheep farming has had tough times in recent years, Orchard says it's currently in a growth phase.
Very good store lamb sales, the lamb schedule's held up very well. The mutton schedule's exceptional for this time of year, so the sheep industry's in very good heart.
One of the traditions of stock sales is the catering, and Huranui Mayor Winton Daly lent a hand to members of the Harden Presbyterian Church who've been catering the event since 1930. In Harden, the South Today.
That's all for Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and channel39.co.nz, as well as following us on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Sophie Morris. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.